Here we go, as promised. Season 2 of Empty by Eric Ruggles. If you missed the first 9 episodes of Season 1, you can go to my YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/@Eric Ruggles. You can hit the playlist that says Empty episodes, and it is the podcast playlist. And you can watch the episodes 1 through 9 or any that you have missed to get caught up to Season 2. If you go to my YouTube channel, please subscribe, hit the notifications so you know when the next one comes out. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. I would appreciate any subscribers that I can get, and I do appreciate the ones that I have now. So where do we leave off? Alright, so we're going into Season 2, Episode 1, Remains at the Lighthouse and the Log Cabin Lair. Where did we leave off? Basically, Rayden and his crew, alright, they were heading up to Ipswich Bay from North Carolina to the lighthouse in which Creo had Rayden's mother held captive. Creo was there with one of his evil little helpers, Darren, who was a pretty good shot with the shotgun. He was up on the balcony waiting for Rayden and his crew to come. When they get to the lighthouse, basically there's a lot of killing that happens. Rachel, she dies. Rayden's mother dies. Charles, Rayden's father, dies. Creo dies. And Darren dies, as well as Drew, the other friend that was riding with Rayden. He dies as well, which left Rayden all alone. And that's where we're picking up at. Okay? So as Rayden walked out of the door of the lighthouse, he began to hear sirens in the distance. The commotion at the lighthouse caused several concerned citizens to call the disturbance into the authorities. The flashes of lights during the fight at the lighthouse, as well as the gunshots heard by nearby houses, sparked concerns. The cops and the fire department were definitely on their way. Rayden, still memorized by his love, family, and friend being murdered, started to regain focus. He went back into the lighthouse to see if he could revive them. He started with Rachel. Laying his hands on her and trying to use his powers to bring her back. But to his disappointment, it did not work. What he did not know was that witches and warlocks can heal people as long as they still have a pulse. But once a person dies, the witch or warlock cannot bring them back from the dead. The sirens were getting closer. Rayden had very little time to react, so he sprinted to his car, got in, not turning on the lights to attract attention, and went the opposite direction of the sirens. This direction was not the direction he wanted to go, and as soon as he was out of the sight from the cops, he turned his lights on to see. He had to take some back roads to loop around and head back toward home. He had nowhere else to go. He headed toward I-95. He would hit it and travel back toward North Carolina. The cops had just arrived at the lighthouse, therefore Rayden had some time before they processed the crime scene, but he still had to act fast. The cops would get to the scene and must walk the scene, mark it off as a crime scene, search for clues at the scene, remove the bodies, and they would still have to ID the bodies. This was going to take a little bit of time, especially identifying the connection of Rayden to what happened at the lighthouse. Meanwhile, Rayden is hauling ass down I-95. His GPS was able to detect radar from police cars, so he was warned if he was approaching any 50. As he drove, Rayden could not get the picture of Rachel's head splitting open from the shot from Darren's rifle out of his thoughts. It was a graphic, and it replayed in his head over and over again. The bullet hit the back of her head and continued to pierce through, splitting her head wide open, and brain fragments splattering all around her limp body. That kept playing over and over again in his head as he drove. Rayden, approaching Hickory, his hometown in North Carolina, knew he had to dump the car because it was only a matter of time before he would be sought after by the police, and the car would link that to him. Another part of his life gone. No longer will he be able to jump in the beast and take a ride. He drove up onto a bridge over the huge Lake Hickory. This spot was one of the deepest of the lake, and dumping his car there could possibly buy him more time until he could figure things out. There was just enough clearing before the guardrail that led to the side of the bridge, which was basically a metal frame fence. Rayden did not want to crash through the fence and into the lake. That would be heard and called in right away, finding his car and linking it to Rayden. Plus, he did not know how strong those metal poles were, and he might not be able to crash through it. Even if he hits the clearing before the bridge fast enough to get some distance toward the deeper middle of that spot of the lake, the noise of the splash could attract attention even at early morning. So the plan was to find a clearing far enough off the road where no one could see him and practice moving his car. Now, he has moved objects before, but nothing as big as a car. He has moved a pen, a pillow, and the stone from Creo's ribs. He was not confident enough to move a car yet. He figured it would be better to practice moving and controlling his car in a hidden clearing in the woods near the lake. Rayden was not used to all the new powers he received at the Lighthouse, so he parked the car at a small clearing behind some trees and decided to see what powers he might have gained after practicing moving the car. Rayden got out of his car. It was evening now. He left Ipswich Bay about 6 a.m. and arrived in Hickory about 9 p.m. It was too early to dump the car, so that is why he decided to test the realms of his new powers. He got out of his car, locked it. He then walked into a small gathering of trees to practice moving and controlling his car until he felt confident he could do the job. Rayden then wanted to attempt some of the new powers he received. He remembered one of the witches shouted, "Teleporting!" as the power went out into his body, releasing the witch's spirit from the lighthouse. No other way to learn teleporting than just doing it. So he made several attempts teleporting from place to place in the woods. The last attempt practicing transporting was very risky. He transported to his house in Hickory, specifically in the kitchen. He quickly grabbed his favorite backpack and filled it with food and drinks. He loved that backpack. It was a camo design and, of course, had his name written across the front of the bag. He ran upstairs, grabbed some clothes and toiletries, and in an instant transported back into the woods by his car. The cops were not at his house. If they were, he planned to transport back to the woods quickly. Since they were not there, Rayden figured they had not yet linked him to that group lying dead at the lighthouse. He continued to play around for a few more hours, making sure no one was watching, of course, until he looked at his watch and he read it at 1 a.m. It was time to dump the car. The plan was to dump the car and stick around long enough to make sure the car sinks to the point of no longer being seen. He then would transport himself to Creo's cabin where he could hide out for a few days. The cabin was hidden in the woods and no one really knew about it. It was the perfect place to lie low. After playing around with the transport power, he realized all he needed to do was think of where he wanted transported, and within an instant, he would appear there. In order for it to be successful, he had to really concentrate on where he wanted to go, and he also had to have physically been there at one point in time. Without any hesitation, Rayden jumped into his car for the last time, went down the road a little, turned around, and headed for the clearing right before the bridge. He parked the car before the edge of the clearing and got out of his car. He walked to the center of the bridge, looked around for any onlookers, and once he knew no one was out there and no one was watching, he started to move the car off the ledge. The car floated gracefully to the center of the lake, and Rayden lowered it gently into the lake. There was no splash, hardly any noise, and the car started to sink as he let go of control of the car. It bubbled and made some noise, but not enough to attract any attention. The car started to sink as he let go of control of the car. It bubbled and made some noise, but the plan was working. He watched the car sink out of visibility, and after the car was completely gone, he walked to the trees, out of sight. He grabbed his backpack of food and clothes. He sat down in the clearing, looked around, and saw no one, and in a blink of an eye, he disappeared. Rayden appeared at the front steps of Creo's cabin. He started to walk toward the door of the cabin, and gently opening up the door, he peered in and saw that it was empty. He walked in, shutting the door behind him, and sat down at the table. He decided to eat and drink a little, and then find a place to rest. As he began to eat a little, he thought to himself, man, with these new powers, I'm a bad dude. I just need to learn what powers I have and how to control them. However, I have lost my friends, my family, my team that supported me. They're gone forever, and I am alone in this battle. The lighthouse was a mess. And the police looked around at the blood and guts laying on the floor and splattered on the walls. It looked like a massacre took place there, and it did. Rayden's mother was sitting in the chair, limp, and her feet lying in a pool of her own blood. Jessica's head was split into pieces, making her unidentifiable. Drew and Darren laid in a pond of their own bloods, and Darren with a smashed head, and Drew with his guts spilling out of his body. Hunter Chastain was the lead detective on this scene, and he was used to this type of crime scene. Some of the other cops did not have the same strong stomach and were escorting themselves outside to vomit from the gruesome sight. Chastain was his early 40s, and he was a strong-looking man that stood about 6'2". He had broad shoulders and tree trunks for legs. Needless to say, the dude was jacked. He was also smart, having been a detective for 20 years. He became very street smart. He was very blunt and spoke his mind, which tended to rub people the wrong way. He had very few friends, but was well respected in the police force. Chastain was also known to work in coordinates with regional task force on homicide cases that had consistent patterns of murders. Chastain began yelling out orders to observe the bodies and search the bullets that were used. One of the officers, tape off the crime scene, yelled Chastain. Of course, they searched the bodies for any form of identification, but none of them had any on them. Chastain knew that for some of the bodies to be identified, he would need forensics to get the fingerprints. That is, if their prints were in the database. The forensics crew would also include a pathologist or medical examiner. Chastain wanted to know everything, including the causes of death. When the forensic team got there and the crime scene was marked off and evacuated, allowing forensics to do their job, the crew collected and bagged up as much DNA samples as they could, including hair, blood, and fingerprints. They even retrieved items like the gun. The medical examiner did her job and examined the bodies for cause of death. When she finished, she reported to Detective Chastain and explained the causes were as figured: bullet wounds and death upon impact from a fall. The examiner went on to say, from the bruises on the two male victims that died from impact, I would say there was a struggle between the two. Chastain knew once forensics got back to the lab that he would eventually know who was lying dead on the lighthouse floor. Chastain and the officers began to leave the crime scene since everything was thoroughly scoped. The cleanup crew was coming in as they were leaving the lighthouse. Chastain felt that there was something odd about the scene, a feeling that other people were involved, even though the deduction was that the two males that died from impact, one of them was the killer. The one killing kidnapped the lady, eventually shooting her, and the girl that came to save the lady tied in the chair. As she ran to get the lady, she was shot in the head. The other impact victim ran upstairs while the killer shot the lady in the chair. The two struggled, fell off the ledge, and both died on impact. It seemed clean cut, but something was off, and Chastain needed more closure, a motive, a reason for all of this taking place. All right, well, there you have it. Season 2, Episode 1. And like I said, if you've missed the first 9 missed the first 9 episodes of Season 1, then you can go to my YouTube page. Right there it is, www.youtube.com/@Eric Ruggles. Please subscribe, please like, and get notified when the next episode comes out. And that should be next week sometime. All right, thank you.